This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everybody.
Good
morning.
All right, we're about to begin our meeting for today. Do we have any volunteers on the prayer?
Lord, we thank you this day and thank you for the freedom we have to come together as a community here and talk the business of the county. Lord, please be with us here at the table as we discuss the issues before us and make decisions for the best interest of the citizens. Be with us where we fail you, Lord. In your name we ask, amen.
Amen.
All right, let's all stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. We have before you a proposed agenda. What's the pleasure of the board? David, you got anything?
No, sir.
I want, talk about, I want to add the fee schedule for permits. You know, I need to get some clarity on that
For building permits.
for building permits. Mhm. Yeah. Eugene?
I'm good.
Anything, Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
I move that we adopt an amended
A second.
agenda.
Okay. There's a motion and second. All in favor by the show of hands. That motion carries. All right. Our old minute with mail and email to everybody. What's the pleasure of the board?
I make the motion that we accept the old minutes. Second.
Okay. There's the motion and second. I swear, everybody told me that, man, you losing it. This is the discussion part of the minute. You going to county commission on a Wednesday? Yeah, I'm losing it. All in favor by the show of hands. And that motion carries. Mr. Steve is on you now.
All right. Let's see here. You've got a copy of the financial report for the month of May. Take it, look at it. Just when it's that time of year where cash is getting mighty tight. We got by another month, so any questions, we'll try to answer them, but we'll move on. Budget, we are working on developing next year's budget, and I would like to have just a very brief work session at the end of this meeting to give you also an update on where we at on the budget process. The River Road Drainage Project, I don't have any updates on that. I'd hoped to have I was hoping that our engineer would have gotten an estimate from Reeves Paving to go pave that section that we cut to put the new pipe in, but he hasn't gotten that estimate back from Reeves on that yet, so we'll still, and then that project will be completed, and then I can give you a final cost of that project.
Once we do the paving, we're done, and then we do the draining separate, or we gotta do all of it before? Yes.
Paving is all that we lack on that.
Okay.
The project, we had to take out an old
Right.
rusted pipe. We put in 2 new pipes. That has all been done. It's just the only thing lacking is paving, replacing the paving on top of it. So,
This is one you gave us a nice aerial view of.
yes.
Because that was brought to my attention. You're talking about the cost. And I forgot how much it actually costs to do that one down there. The bids, what was the initial bid on it? And I told him, man, I said we had a considerable saving on the project, but I couldn't come up with no number. And it, same thing about the one out here on
West Road.
on yeah, I saw the need. When the Joker get to talking like that, I like to hit him in the face with some numbers and let him know what we're saving. But they think the price that we gonna get it completed now is a little extreme. But so if you can generate them numbers for me,
If you give me just a second, I should
yeah, I
be
sure
able
would
to
appreciate it.
find that for you. Okay, be that way. Polls. Okay, for the River Road bid, of course, now this is, all right. That bid was to put a concrete box cover. That's not what we wound up putting in now. So that's not comparing apples to apples. Let me see what this next one was.
No, that was the pipe right there.
Now this is the pipe. This is more similar to what we wound up doing.
Mm.
The bid was $346,000,
See,
and we're gonna have less than half that in there for sure.
okay.
We're gonna have between 100 and 150. I don't know yet. So we're saving over 150,000. We're saving $200,000 on that project.
We got to come back and
Pay.
Each one, can I get a copy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then
I'm gonna just slap it right in his face. Y'all know what you're talking about.
let me see what's the difference. Okay. All right, that was concrete pipe. This is more closer to what we doing. Yeah, that's the pipe we put in there, the polymer coated pipe.
yes,
So that all right, so like I said, I don't know the final outcome yet. We're gonna save $150,000.
that's a,
Let me print this out for you. Now the West Road, we're not gonna have a comparable. I think what we took bid. What is this? Okay, on the West Road, we took bids to replacing the pipe.
Mm-hmm.
We wound up deciding not to replace the pipe because I got out and actually went in there and looked at the pipe. The pipe was still good. It was just the ends that needed replacing. So we're just going to cut off the bad sections on both ends and add a little section. So, the closest. That was going to be the cheapest bid. What we took, $344,000, and what we're winding up doing, it's going to cost us less than $100,000. You want a copy of that?
Yeah. Oh, both.
Okay. You'll remind me before we leave. I got it out there on the printer for you.
Okay.
All right. Moving along. Tiny houses. We'll talk about that with Glenn a little later. The recommendation from the planning commission. We're going to have a little work session with Glenn on that. Number 7, the bridge on Bowen Road. There's nothing new to report on that. I will sit in an online meeting with DOT next week to get an update on that project. Number 8, Family Connection. Back in 2018, the county commissioners agreed to serve as the physical agent for the Dooley County Family Connection. Basically, all that means is we agreed to do the financial work for them, pay their bills, pay Amanda, and then the state reimburses us on a quarterly basis. We'll spend the money up front and get reimbursed. It's not costing the county anything other than us floating 3 months worth of expenses at one time. And they reimburse us in a timely manner. It's not been a real big issue. The current contract for us to be the fiscal agent expires at the end of this month. They would like for us to renew another annual contract, so we request.
And the annual amount is around $50,000 to $60,000, so the quarterly amount is $12,500 to $15,000 that you're in the
The
hole.
the proposed amount for this upcoming year, total amount is $56,250.
So you never get in one quarter more than,
Less than $15,000.
so if you don't get paid, you can always,
I'd like a motion, if the board's willing to continue to be the fiscal agent, like a motion to that effect there.
I'll offer the motion to continue that program as such.
Myself. It has been motion and second. Do we have any other discussion on it?
I've got one question.
Okay.
Did we get a report from them at all?
No,
Okay, typically, they are required to provide a report to the governing agency that supports them, and they usually do that in the form of a written or a come once a year report to tell you what they've done. That might be helpful, so people know what's going on. They have to generate it for the
We
state.
do get that through the chamber emails or whatever. They do give
an update.
They do give an annual report of what they do, but now they don't give it directly to us, but they do provide that to the
Okay.
public.
Just making sure that they were doing that, because that's one of the components that they're supposed to communicate to the community.
They do. I've seen it before.
That way, if anyone has any question as to what they do, you're informed, because they are telling people they're informing you.
Okay, do you have any other discussion on it? If not, all in favor by the show of hands? Okay, that motion carries.
All right, in regard to the transit program, for several years, we've contracted with a third-party contractor to operate the transit system. RMS, Resource Management Services. DOT contracts with the county to provide funding for the transit program, and RMS, then the county contracts with RMS to operate it under DOT guidelines, regulations, and it doesn't cost the county. The county has no money invested in the program. We handle the paperwork, but RMS has been, this is one of the few, we've probably been with them 10 years or more.
Oh, yeah. Just get no.
I can count on one hand the number of phone call complaints I've had about the transit system. That's highly unusual. So anyway, the state is changing the way they did the bid process, so we had to put the program back out for bids to give other potential entities an opportunity to submit a proposal to run it. We advertise it in the local paper. We advertise it on our website. We advertise it. The state has a website where counties and cities can post projects to get the word out, and we're required to post it on a website that advertises nationally. And we only got one proposal back from RMS. So I want to, if you would, I'd like to, since we're dealing with such short time, I'd like to get y'all to approve signing the contract. This time they allow us to sign a 2-year contract with an option for 4 additional 1-year terms. We're not required, we're not bound to have it the whole 6 years, and it can be terminated anytime we want it. But our DOT representative is currently reviewing the proposal. She had said she'd let me know when it was approved by yesterday. She hasn't let me know. I see no problem with it, but rather than have to wait and have another special meeting before now in July the 1st, if y'all would make a motion to approve, entering into a 2-year contract pending DOT's approval of the proposal. Does that kind of make sense?
I'll offer the motion that we do the 2-year contract pending their approval.
That's it.
It had the motion and second. Do we have any other discussion on it? If not, all in favor by the show of hands? Okay, that motion carries. Okay.
Thank you. We're gonna need a brief executive session at the end to talk about an update on some current litigation. Item number 11, the planning commission will conduct a public hearing on Monday, July the 14th, to receive comments on 2 zoning requests. The first zoning request, Wilbert Whitehead Jr. has submitted an application for a variance of zoning for parcel 9510 that is currently zoned agriculture. The purpose of the variance is to allow 2 8-foot by 40-foot storage containers to encroach on the setback allowance of 10 feet. The location is in 3310 Barbershop Road. That's a variance request. The planning commission has the authority to approve or deny variances, so that does not necessarily come before y'all. But in request number 2, Gabriel Eric Phillips has submitted an application for rezoning of parcel 74-1D that's currently zoned C2. He's wanted zoning change to ag, and the purpose of the request is so it allow him to build a home on the property.
The first one was 3310. No, parcel.
But I mean, I'll try to pull that map
I
up.
just wasn't doing it by.
Where's my address?
I went to World Hoffman,
Address up top.
I did what do hard.
Oh,
That's it.
Okay.
I know Will.
Wilbert Jr.
33.
See what that means? Good boy.
Will Whitehead, Jr.
It says 3300 Barbershop.
no, it's 3310.
Do with that.
Here you go.
Where's 33 behind it?
I know. I just
Hold on a second.
Going up and
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay. I know the name sounds familiar. When you hear Whitehead.
There's what I'm looking for. Let me go to the Q Public.
Talking about that mic.
Okay, there's multiple houses on
On the parcel already.
the. Mm-hmm.
Is that where there was a farm out there where there was an actual barber shop at one time?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same parcel?
No, not the same parcel. The same road. Barbershop. That was what was his name? Wasn't Joyner. It was his grandson was a GBI agent.
Yeah, I went out there.
Owens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had an estate
Yeah.
sale 10 years ago or something
Yeah,
after
sure.
she died, and they had some really neat stuff out there. They had a piece of pottery from Crawford County pottery that was worth probably $6,000 or something in there. It was unbelievable. That was like the piece that everybody was looking at.
Also 9510. Give me just a second, folks. That's the parcel. Well, I'm assuming where they want to put the storage container, somewhere back here,
Lower rear,
somewhere in here,
yes, sir.
and it's zoned agricultural, so the setback is 10 feet from the rear property line.
Correct.
And they're wanting to put it closer.
2 foot.
And zoom out to show you where this is. This is the Pinehurst Hawkinsville Road here,
Mhm.
and that's Barbershop Road there.
Who owns 3312? Who owns 9511?
Who's the adjacent?
9511.
Who's the neighbor?
Not
Neighbor.
Down.
down here,
Who's the neighbor? I don't know.
John Allen Bryant. And then the other for the rezoning is parcel 74D. Seventy-four, 1D. 1D. Okay. All right, this is north of Unadilla, right on the Dooley, Houston County line. This is I-75 and this is 41.
Why did we zone that commercial?
This, that's an excellent question. We turn the zoning layer on. Oh, it don't show on that one. I gotta go back to the other map.
Was this the tower?
This is the vicinity. Let me turn that zoning map off. That zoning information there is not correct. This big parcel is where there was a variance and a conditional use a little over a year ago. Therefore, put a cell tower there. The cell tower nothing has progressed as far as the cell tower has it.
No, sir, not yet.
But it got approved. It's just the owners haven't done anything.
And they did permit it.
But this was a separate parcel right next to it. Let me see if I can go pull that up. How was that? What address was that? Northern County Road. I don't know how to turn. How do I get to my layers?
Yeah, it was missing the, tool.
There we go. Okay. Zoning, Dooley County zoning. It appears when the zoning map was first created, this area here north of Unadilla, between I-75 and Highway 41 was identified zone C2. But C2 doesn't allow residential. So that's why he's wanting to build a house there. So that's why he's having to request it be rezoned to agricultural. So that does go for the planning commission. Planning commission will consider it, make a recommendation, and then it comes before the county commissioner. So this will be back in front of y'all with a recommendation from the planning commission.
But he owned, how much of that land,
Okay.
commercial that is? I was just curious. And I know probably why they didn't zone the commercial, but.
All right, this individual owns like a 1.5 acre parcel right there. But it was part of this parcel. This is his grandparents' land here, and they got an acre and a half out of it. Does that answer your question? Okay, let's go back to the agenda. Okay. Mr. Chairman, you wanted to add something about permit fee schedule?
Yeah, not one other thing I forgot too. Yeah, how do we? I know we talked about it in here about coming up with the fees for a building permit. Now, what process do?
Mr. Glenn, will you come up here?
All right. How do we charge for a building permit?
According to state law, the only ways that you can charge is per square foot or fixed figure. And we have a combination of both. On the website, there's a 4-page breakdown of the fee schedule for what is charged and how it's charged.
Have we lowered that from what you initially put in?
We've lowered it 4 times
Mm-hmm.
to its present time.
Is it the lowest you feel like it can go?
Well, I guess that's depending on how much of a burden will be that will fall upon the tax of the people. The intent is to help offset the cost of the building department.
You're not allowed, aren't you not, I think you're not allowed to generate more fees than what it's costing you to run the department. And we're nowhere near, our fees are not completely funding the building
Right.
permit department.
So if the building permit department's budget was $100,000 and your fees are estimated to be,
Well, let's just look at actual figures here.
let's look at percentages.
We budgeted 60, but he's already exceeded that.
Through May, we had collected $65,000 in building permit fees.
From January, no, from
From October 1 through May, we generated $65,000.
so that's 8 months. So that's,
In that same period of time, we have spent $88,000.
And the question was brought to my attention: why would the building permit? They did almost the same job. Why was it different in Dula County compared to some of the other counties? And I couldn't.
Well, I would assume, I'm talking out of school here because this is not my area of expertise, but building a house, what's the first permit you're gonna get to build a house?
They're going to get one of the first fees is a plan review, which is new construction plan review,
That's a flat fee.
a flat fee of $100. And then you have the construction, which is
What's that listed
broken
as?
between, A to B on the word new, start with the letter N.
I
You got
guess,
new construction, heated and unheated space. And the heated is 60 and unheated is 40 cents a square foot. So like the porches,
So I'm
would be
assuming
40.
another county, they could have a different per square foot cost out here for their fees. The state doesn't set what your per square foot fee is. They allow you to do that.
But when we did look at 2 counties, maybe 3, of what theirs were, and we set ours. I
and
don't,
those counties were, just for comparison,
we did a combination of, we compared with other counties,
Chris,
Chris County, Macon County, and no, sir, not Houston, because of the size capacity. It was Pulaski County. And then we took a combination of the revenues that we had taken over the previous years and did a multiplying factor to find out what the average cost per square foot was. We first presented that, and then y'all decided to lower it yet again. So we lowered it one time after we brought it together with those comparisons, and then we lowered it one more time.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not a math wizard, but based on the 8-month numbers that were given and making some assumptions on that, because I don't know if we put everything in to salary and everything else that could be attributed to that, which could affect it a little bit, but I'm gonna assume that those are the right numbers. If you do 65 over 88, you get 73%. So we're recouping 73% of that department's expenses, and so the taxpayers are funding 27%. So if we lower that, then that's going to increase what the taxpayers are going to pay for that service. Is, I guess, the ultimate answer to that. The question is how much tolerance does this body have for that, and what is fair? You know, do you want to go to 50%? You know, because you're talking about, you know, thousands of dollars here, but not, you know, the question is, was this complaint based on a new construction or on a?
It was sort of a combination because guys were talking, and I knew we had talked about everything that
Right.
we had talked about in here, but I could not, you know, explain because it's different in all the counties.
Right.
And
Do they have is there a consensus that there's a particular place that we should be looking at that is cheaper, that is fair, that we should maybe take a look at? I mean, that would be a fair way to look at it.
as, you know, even with that, it's hard to see because like in Byronville, they don't have it. Then they want to know why they can doing the same job. And they don't have to pay, you know, in different areas in the. I mean, it just had me balled up, and I couldn't.
Right.
I mean, I just couldn't say anything. And I know because I saw work all around, but you're gonna be something you just have to have a few dollars there.
If I could, Commissioner Barron, if you notice, you mentioned potential remodel down at the bottom there. We have remodel renovation up to $75,000. If the cost is $75,000, there's a fixed fee of $125. It doesn't go over that. So if they're doing anything up to $75,000 in renovation, it's only $125 fee.
Okay, let me. I'm going. And that's a good point.
That's very reasonable.
Yeah, that's yeah. Okay. So the permit, if it's less than, I mean, if the remodel is less than, how much you say it was?
It says right there, $125 for any type of structural remodel that they're doing inside, bathroom remodel. If they're doing, you know, moving walls, kitchens, etc. If they don't exceed $75,000, and that's only based upon what they put down. I can't determine the number.
Yeah, right.
It's upon what they
They're gonna lie.
it's a $125 fee.
I said if it's 50, if it's 50,000,
It's a $50,000. It's $125.
okay, regardless.
Yes, sir.
Up until 100.
Up to $75,000. It's $125.
Regardless. Okay.
But now, that's just construction. Is electrical involved? Is there additional fee for electrical, plumbing?
That was the construction part, not the plumbing, not the electrical, the construction part. And unless y'all want me to include all of those things, we can do that. That's the three to four additional inspections that need to be done. But this has to do with the framing, the drywall, and such as that.
Now I sort of see. Now I'm gonna give you my personal opinion. That 125 compared to what I deal with in some of the other counties, that basically includes everything
In the other counties,
in the other counties.
there's one fee up front. That's it.
The one right that includes the. That's what, Steve. You brought up a good point. That's where I was getting confused. That 125, because if they only remodeling the bedroom, and then they got a wire in the bedroom or whatever, and they got to get another permit with that. That don't make no sense. I mean, get a building inspection on that. So the 125 to me should include, you know, a couple of outlets or whatever that need to be, because that now I can see that permit going up. The cost, you know. So let me ask you this question, since we're on it now. Okay, I understand the construction part. What if he put two outlets in there? How much would the building permit be?
I didn't understand the question.
If you
Two
pull
electrical outlets. If he adds two electrical outlets in that bedroom remodel, that's his question.
Oh, how much is an electrical? It's a base fee electric, which I think is 35.
Okay.
It'll be under the electrical base fee, $35.
What if he said the room was a 12 by 12 and he hung sheetrock in it? Because I said it. How much? Okay, so we at 35 and 125 now.
Right,
Right.
160.
Okay, so now how much would it be for the? Would the sheetrock come up under?
Yes, that's already included. In
Okay,
that.
now what else wouldn't be included in that then?
Plumbing.
The plumbing. What,
But
okay, what about the
if there
bathroom?
is plumbing to be done, you'd have a base fee plumbing, which is also 35. So you get your residential plumbing base fee 35.
Mr. Barron,
Yes.
Ain't no money.
let me share something with you here.
Okay.
When I built my cabin, my guest cabin, and I made the mistake of using my cousin again, who is an electrician from Donaldsonville, and we had the predecessor in here, and I had to pull a building permit, and he charged me $35 an outlet. This was 20 years ago, my dear cousin. So after he did everything, and I trusted him completely, and Gary came out there and said, Bert, he didn't put this over here and this over here. This is my introduction to Gary. I was, well, he's my cousin. I was defensive of him. Gary saved my place from burning down because my cousin was going to rip me off. Now, that being said, my cousin cussed him always Sunday, and I didn't want to pay that permit, and I was believing the permit guy was wrong. But now I look back on it, and I found other things my cousins did over the years. And, you know, your own relatives will, I'm not saying anybody here is like that, but I'm just saying that my experience was the building inspection turned out to be well worth it for consumer protection. Now, back then the rates were different.
Yeah, I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the.
Yeah, but I think the
other
perception,
charges.
I think it's very fair. The perception is it also depends on how honest the people are going in, and maybe the honest isn't the right word, how forthright they are and saying what they're going to be doing. And I think we need to get away from the cat and mouse of, you know, oh, we're going to come in here and add something later when we find you do something. We need to find the full scope of the project, and they need to write that down on the application so that based on what's on that application is what we quote them. Make sense?
Yeah.
Because what happens is they come in and say, I'm just going to do a remodel, and I check no electrical, no plumbing, and then later he goes out to inspect and finds it. That's where the rub comes in, I think. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay, I mean,
And we had discussed when we had last time met and lowered it to where we are now. We said if there's a concern and it needs to be lowered, it can be lowered just by the will of the commission. This is what you all think is best for the community. That's what we're trying to do. Happy to lower it, and it can be done somewhat easily. If you want to go flat fee on everything, we can go flat fee on everything. You just need to determine what you want. Takes a little bit of changing on my end on the computer, but that's I can do everything that needs to be done.
I still want to address where there's this program in place, and in communities where there's none. You're not going to ever get a balance there. They're going to always
And
have a
they'll,
problem.
I agree, there'll be, but what are they getting by not having none?
Man,
We can't, we'd have to look at apples for apples. And but it is the will of the commission. I'm happy to do whatever you want. At this year, at present, it looks like we're going to exceed our projected income that we had thought we were going to get. Last year, we did not.
There's a lot of building going on now, but again, this for small projects.
You're saying are you saying $160 for a bedroom remodel? Up to $75,000. $160 for the permit's too expensive.
Bedroom, bathroom.
The bathroom would be more. I'm just saying a bedroom.
Bedroom,
The worst
no
you're gonna do is electrical. You're not gonna do any plumbing in a bedroom.
Okay.
You're gonna do construction and that's $160. Is that too expensive for $75,000 worth of work?
Yeah, but I'm not talking about 75. We want to talk about a room.
I thought we were talking about
25,000.
Yeah, I'm saying
once it's above 75,000, it then goes to the square footage. You got 60 cents for heated, and then 40 cents below. So that's when it breaks to a square footage cost, and that's based on how big is it. So it's no longer what they're declaring it's costing. They can declare anything at that point if they put $80,000, and then we're going to go by the square footage because it's now exceeded the $75,000 mark. Or they could declare $75,000, and there has been people that have done that to get it under when it's ridiculously obviously over, but I still issue the permit based on their declaration.
So to focus the discussion, Mr. Barron, what I heard you say and what I heard him say was there could be an adjustment of the whole thing to a flat rate to include everything
It's a flat rate now.
for,
Not up on the new construction, I mean, the remodel. At 120, I mean, the permit gonna be the same regardless of what you do in there. I mean, not what you do, but just for construction part and not for the wiring, which we said would be a
so the
separate.
flat rate for the base.
It's a flat rate on everything he's talking about right now.
Okay, so the 125 includes what?
Everything, sheetrock and
All your foundation, framing,
foundation, everything
roofing,
up to $75,000.
Right, but not electric.
windows.
Not electrical. That's
Okay.
another 35.
I think his argument is that he wants it the flat rate that includes everything, but how do you know what everything is? Because you may or may not have
But
HVAC.
it had to be a description. I'm just saying, if you're going in there just on the sheetrock right around in this room, and the
That's
room ain't
125.
what, 8 by 8, and they already got a top, they got a floor, they got the, they got all that already in it. And then his wife said, "Well, then I want to add a couple of outlets because I want to add something." Okay, it left to me, we ought to have, and I'm gonna say this: y'all can sit around and take talk all you want. I do this all the everything. It's just a common sense approach through it with the inspector. To if they do that room and somebody add a couple of outlets, they keep down a peace of mind, and you know it's right. And if there's something wrong with the outlet, I would say something. Just be through with it, and not create a problem where you got somebody complaining. And charge and say, well, why didn't that price was included in the very beginning?
Is this concerning the people that were doing the remodel without a permit and they got stopped? And
No.
okay,
No,
because there's an additional fine that's 50% of the project.
Right. No. I'm just saying, even talking about with me.
Okay.
Yeah, with me. And see, I know y'all probably get tired of hearing that, but see, I work with, almost all the inspectors, man, and that's the kind of approach that we have. Man, it's all right to drive. The speed limit can be 55 out there on the interstate, and then you do 60, and you're still not gonna get a ticket because they got that little wiggle room in there, for things. That all right? But I'm saying but once you give them a ticket for 60, then the first thing they say, well, then I thought speed limit was I could go 10 miles over. Well, the judges sort of fixed that, so that would eliminate that. But that's the only thing I'm saying is, well, and I'm not talking about a big addition. I ain't talking about digging no footing and all that kind of stuff. I'm just talking about this.
If they pull the permit for 125 and you go out and inspect it and they've moved an outlet without asking, are they going to get an electrical fee? Is I think what he's getting to. Or is there some discretion that you see that you have that you can say, hey, this is a one-off project, don't do it again, versus it's somebody who does it all the time? I think that's what he's asking, which is kind of a gray area, but I just kind of want to know the answer.
Probably 90% of the time, if somebody's putting on an addition, per code, they have to have outlets in it. So they know that they're going to be putting in electric, and I'll ask them, are we only doing that room and wiring? I want to know if we're going to wire more of the house at that time, because they may need a different permit. So I try to communicate based on what I'm seeing on the information given. When I come out there and I see there's one outlet changed, I don't say anything because that's just one outlet. But if they go changing multiple outlets, and depending on their knowledge, sometimes they're extending a circuit that's overloading the circuit because you can't run it that many.
I agree with
And
you.
that's what happens when they,
Exactly.
out of ignorance,
Right.
think, oh, it's no big deal. I can add 4 more outlets to this one circuit. The circuit was already at its limit, and they extended it, and now there's a potential risk. And so that's what we're looking for.
But see, even with that, and I'm just trying to avoid some problems that we encounter, because I hear stuff all the time. I would simply say, this circuit is already full. You can't add nothing else to it no more. Now, hey man, what you might need to do, we might need to get some more, run another wire home or whatever, to the breaker box or whatever. You need to do that. Now, do it, and this time I'm just gonna tell you, make them feel like they're winning all the time. And then we have less complaint, and then not really charging my feet on it. And instead of you can't every time you write something it's just because you got to cross off the T of the owl. I mean, we cannot just whoop them down because of a little technicality unless it's crucial. Now, if they let the period off at the end of the sentence as a question mark, I can see. But I'm saying it's just the little things. I'm saying that we need to keep from having.
Are you saying most of the time the individual pulls the permit, or are you helping them pull the permit?
No, I'm talking about when they put. No, I'm talking about these are complaints I get.
Okay.
No.
Because I'm not a builder, but if the builder does it as convenience for a person and they pull the permit, and they out there doing the work, most of the time, a lot of this stuff is cost plus anyway, isn't it? I mean, do they stick their neck out that far now with building materials like that?
Well, these are just,
anybody can't take that pen and cover $35. They probably in the wrong business.
yeah, but these are just These are just people that putting their own permit.
Okay.
And if it's me, I'm going to add that cost in anyway.
Well, then that's
If-
what
if-
I was
if it
getting
means-
to.
You
Yeah.
cover
Yeah.
those, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking about these are just people that are doing it on their own. Yeah.
And
For what kind of
If I-
project? I'm curious, like, is this, if you're we talk about remodeling a bedroom, is that like redoing the sheetrock?
It depends on what they want. I mean, if you remodel a bedroom, they might want to. And see, again, you're talking about insulation. Then you might for the wiring, and if you want, a lot of time the wiring is already there. You might do the insulation and repaint and do all that kind of stuff. And then they might want to run. Okay, you already got. I know there's a certain amount of wire that go on each circuit, but now they might have room. They might want to just slide it over a little bit further. Okay, and he said he didn't say anything about one. But I would still tell them and let them know. Make them think they're getting a deal when they ain't. Say, well, then there's not going to be a cost. But now you need it. I'm just basing the things that I have worked with other inspectors that here. But that's how I feel. How the rest of y'all feel. That's how I feel. But that's just how I feel about. Like I said, I do it all the time. So that right there is what needed. I really need a copy of that, so I can. And really, I need to keep that on me too. So when they start asking me,
you need a laminated copy.
yeah, so I can just show it to them. Then see, that'll keep me from getting. I could get more calls than y'all. I'm like Steve, but I probably get more calls than y'all think. And that'll keep when people say things. I got a way of telling them. You getting a break, and I got to know how to explain it.
Gotta have an answer.
Yeah, to them, when they're doing stuff. But also, the bigger thing I found in independent is common sense.
for your information, Taylor County actually came in. They've got new staff and stuff, and they didn't have anything in place. And the state was getting on to them for not having proper billing and such. So because they were doing it based totally on cost on job ratio, which we used to do. So they came over and spent half a day with us looking how I did things. And they got a copy of this, and they have incorporated line by line exactly everything we have. They actually got the same software. They met with Chris to do the same, and they're literally duplicating. And this is the words that I heard from Taylor County, and you can reach out to him if you'd like. And he asked around, he said the one county's got their act together on caring for proper permit is Dooley County. And that's what that's what he said to me. So and that's why they came down and spent a half day here to see how we do it, so that they could copy it themselves.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I may, I think your idea, the suggestion of you having a copy of this and having access to it is important. But I think it's equally important, and it may already be in place, that the people who are applying for the permit, when they get their permit, if you don't already, give them a copy of this with the email,
And explain it to
or
them.
give us a copy of this with the permit, so that they have the information right there at their fingertips. And then there you go. I mean, is there any problem with that? I mean,
No. I mean,
that's a one-page document, right?
Right.
It's a 4-page document.
Well,
Okay.
whatever, email it to
Well,
them.
we can just highlight the things that they
Right.
need to know.
But I mean,
I could send them a digital link on the email that they could click on and could pull it up. Would that be sufficient?
some way that you communicate it to them, so it's not, I mean, it's out there on the website, but you communicate it back when you give them that, so they know what it is.
And let's just be honest here, folks. A lot of these folks, they don't come in here and tell the whole story.
They ain't gonna
up front.
never do it.
I mean, some folk, you say, well, that's fudging. No, that's just outright lying. I'm sorry.
And they're okay with it.
Yeah, they don't see a problem with it at all. So, that's all. We
But they would create such a big issue in the community and know they're lying. They know that they're lying. But now they would say this and that and everything else. I don't care what you say. I mean, you can. That's like they get me a copy. Okay, I'm okay. My question's been answered. But then I had one more thing.
Back to your speeder.
Huh.
Back to your speeder analogy. It is a hit dog that hollers.
Yeah. And fellas, they had one more thing I forgot. This on Highway 230. The guy called me and said, "Man, they're blocking me, and I can't get out my house to the road."
Highway 90.
On Highway 9.
Highway
And
90.
I told him, he called me. I said,
Yes.
"Hey," I said, "I tell you what you do. You call Mr. Steve." And
what are we talking about?
It's on Highway 90. I think the address, it's toward the end of the county. I can't remember his name is Mr. Gilbert.
Yeah.
Gilbert Deed is his name. He came in here and I spoke with him, and he brought a copy of the plat. And I thought he owned the plot. That's what he kept saying. He doesn't own the plot. His uncle owned it and passed away and moved out.
This is Highway 90. This is the
Yes, sir.
county line.
Come up to these ones just at your bottom down here. You see like 4 or 5 right
It
in
should be
there.
the second house on the left.
Mr. Gilbert had
not the second, the third.
yeah, it's those two, because there's a very small narrow path going to the ones. That's the one he lives in, right there. That gentleman passed away, and that was his uncle. And the aunt said he can live in it. And more to the story, Mr. Concepcion back here, what he was doing is, he said Mr. Gilbert was taking his trash can and filling up his trash can with his trash, so he didn't have to buy a trash can. And he got tired of that, so he's decided he's going to put up a fence in which he's got a marking all the way out. And I checked it, and I said, "Look, he's not doing anything wrong. This is going to have to be settled between court. This is a land dispute." And he goes, "Well, it's my aunt's property. I really can't take it to court." I said, "Oh, you're renting?" He goes, "No, she let me live here for free."
In the back?
Pardon me? No, the one in the front.
I'm confused.
The one in the back is Mr. Concepcion. The one in the front is Mr. Gibbs.
So he wanted free garbage.
And so he was using his garbage can because he was leaving it out by the road, so he'd fill it up on his way out, and he didn't have to buy a garbage can. And the only way in and out, if you zoom in, Steve,
I knew this whole story.
right by the 90, you'll see where the property is, and there's a very high embankment that the two homes in the rear share. They have an extended driveway, and the gentleman here on the left Mr. Gilbert, who's living there, he drives up and on, but he had pushed it with the trash, and so the guy's putting up a fence, which goes all the way down, and the only way he can go out and go around the fence is he has to go off an embankment.
It ain't fun, but good
And-
going.
And I said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. He is allowed to fence his property. I can't stop him from fencing his property unless you can show me a legal easement that you have a right to drive on his property. And he goes, well, no, I don't think there's anything like that, but my uncle never had a problem. And I go, your uncle ain't here no more. And he's
This
going to
does
have,
not involve us.
right.
We don't need to have any further discussion on this in this meeting.
Okay. But like I said, I knew where this was headed to. That's why I got off my back and sent them to the authoritarian.
Right.
And I know what we have talked about in the past about
This issue is between neighbors.
exactly. But see, he doesn't have a driveway to get out of his yard now. And see, that's why I started laughing. The guy fenced it in, so now when he leave from his trailer, he got to go down in the deep ditch and then come back up on that highway
Yes.
because he doesn't have a driveway there.
But one can be put in, he just don't want to pay for it.
I know. But I know.
Respectfully.
Yeah.
This is
But-
not our concern.
Yeah, but see, he doesn't know, and then it went on the phone. But I again, he wouldn't have believed me until I sent it to you all.
Okay, sir.
All right, thank you. Is that all, Mr. Chairman?
That's
All right, we need to have a brief executive session. Glenn, I ask you to step out for a minute, and I'll come back and get you for the work session. Darryl will. Unless you just want to hang around down there all day. Because you ain't got nothing else to do, I'm sure.
Sheriff, I don't know what I got to do with it.
No, that's quite all right. You can leave.
I can't make it worse.
Make a motion to go into executive session to get an update on litigation.
That's it.
There's the motion and second. All in favor by the show of hands.
This conference will now be recorded.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes of the executive session as read in executive session.
That's second.
There's the motion and second. All in favor by the show of hands. Okay. That motion carries.
All right, then we're gonna have a brief work session with Glenn to go over the recommendations from the planning commission.
Y'all have a great weekend.
You
Enjoy your holiday tomorrow.
Man,
Every day.
you can't keep up with it, Tony.
See,
Can't
my
keep up
grand,
with
I know it, man, I swear.
it. Can't keep
When you
up with it.
cut, what day, when I cut Monday, I cut yesterday,
My
light just
in-laws,
starts.
they don't know.
But it right back up.
When
I
the
know.
weekend is or not, every day is a weekend.
Probably about 10 acres.
You got a big tractor, though, don't
Man, my mower cut faster than that tractor. I tried it with my tractor. Man, you got to go way out there, turn around.
Oh,
with
yeah,
that doggone
turn around,
tractor.
yeah.
I think I made 2 turns, man, by the time.
That's what I said at school in Pinehurst. I see him out on the zero turn. I was like, dang, I could get a big tractor and do that or whatever. But like you said, you
Turn
can
it around.
run up and down real quick.
Ready for a long one.
Hopefully not gonna be a long one.
I hope not.
All right, real quickly, discuss tiny houses.
Okay, sir. How do you do, gentlemen? All righty. Tiny houses. The tiny house initiative was brought forth by the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. They want the communities, this is their official notice they sent to me, to consider tiny houses in communities because of the population, people that are unhoused. And so they're trying to make something that's an affordable place for them to live. And they wanted to consider tiny houses, shipping containers as to be modified into homes, and also a new type of manufactured home. It's called a park model. And the park model, I give one of them.
Just hit the high spots.
Okay, I'm trying. All right, so the park model,
Yeah, because I don't know what you're talking about.
I was ready if you needed it, but so in here I got the wrong one. I'm in the wrong folder. Here we go.
You don't have a picture of it, do you?
That's what I want to see too.
Park model?
Yeah, you seen it.
It's a camper. It's like a pull behind camper.
Yes, it's
but
it
not
actually
built
can be
rugged to go
considered.
up and down the road consistently. So
It
you
can be
you
cons-
go park it.
Yeah, you
go
can.
sit.
It's considered an RV as well.
Yeah.
This is actually a park model, and the park model can be towed, as he was saying. This is a larger one, it's 15 foot, but you can get them smaller to like 9 foot. You see, here's a RV model. They're on a steel frame, and they're in essence a mobile home, but they're smaller, so they come in the neighborhood of about 390 square foot, on up to a normal size home. And so you can get park models, and they're built bigger. You notice how many chassis are underneath that.
Yeah.
Mobile homes don't have that many when they bring them down the road. So these are much stronger structures than the average. So that's the one thing that they were talking about that was an option to do. Another one was a tiny home, which is this is a 320 square foot tiny home. Basically, it can be a 1 or 2 bedroom with an egress that you can fit into it. And if you'd like, I got one of these for each of you to take with you afterwards so you can see them. And that would be, in my opinion, I would recommend that being the smallest to go to. Because once you get below 320 square foot, it's really hard to get a safe setup for living in it.
All right. Currently, what's the smallest residence you can permit in Dooley County?
Yes, sir. According to Article 5, Section 1, it states that all structures used as dwelling constructed in an R1 district shall have a minimum of a 30 by 30 foot frontage and 30 foot depth, which is 900 square foot. But that's in a residential area. And we never declare what you can do in other areas, how big, how wide, etc. So 900 square foot is what we've used as the governing regulation. Pardon me?
R1 is stick built, but any of these can go into a R2 zone currently.
Yes, they could fit easily into R2. And there is no declaration on how big in our zoning for other areas other than R1. I've used that as a governor for homes to make sure they're at 900 square foot under roof because of that. But there's no declared size under that we've made a decision on, but there's also some side that there's not. So because there's not a clear decision one way or another, that's what I was coming to bring to y'all to ask a decision on a square footage. What is the smallest that you would do? And can we consider the tiny home as the primary residence? Primary residence is basically the house on the property, or should it be a secondary only?
I was just sitting there thinking, because I'm from Brownville. Most of the houses in Brownville probably fit less than 900 square feet. You know, that black people own. That's what they couldn't afford now. It was 1 and 2 bedroom houses.
Okay, doing it.
Yeah. So you right. We need to keep it what people can afford. And then where I want you to explain to them, I forgot to bring this up in me. What's an egress?
What's an egress?
Yeah.
An egress is an opening that is large enough for a fireman to enter a home. And an egress window is what's important in a bedroom. It's not necessarily for the person to get out of. It's for if a fireman comes there with an air tank on his back, they can get into the window safely. And that's what an egress window is. So it's a way of escape is what an egress is.
It has to be how size?
Okay.
What's the minimum size it must be?
5.2 square feet.
Let's talk in
So you got to have at least like a 36-inch wide by almost 4 foot 6 inch tall window to get a 5.2 opening when the one sash slides up. Because often people forget when you're sliding a sash up, it doesn't go all the way flush. It stops about 2 inches from the top, and that's where you end up not having a big enough opening. A lot of folks don't realize that window's not going to go all the way to the top. it's gonna have a preventer on it because of the mechanisms that help an operator up in there.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. The bottom part, okay, once they want to go up, what are you talking about egress? I mean, the side. See, but if the whole one is 36 by 52.
This what would be,
Now, the bottom, okay, is that half of the one of the 52? I'm not, now, I know that's not half, but if we divide 52 by 2.
could you look up egress window on Google and it'll give
Because
the
see, I don't have the question
examples.
in different places. And really, there ain't no clarity on that either. But,
Egress window. Which one are you on? There you go.
I don't think it's important.
What is the 1-3 rule for egress? What does that say? Size of the room. Height from the floor.
See, that's the other thing.
And it can't exceed 48 inches off the floor. And that has to do, that's talking about an egress in a basement. You have to have a certain size well that you can escape out to get up out of it. Are you on, what are you on your searches there? If you could roll up. Click images for me.
And while we trying to find out, I'm gonna ask a question on this. Okay, how many egress windows do you have to have in the house?
One per bedroom.
And that is the code.
There's a drawing there. Pardon me?
So that is the code.
Yes, sir. That's the code. That drawing gives you good detail. There's your 5.7 square feet opening. And it can be a combination of width and height and.
Okay, now once you
width.
let the window up, okay, you said about the 2 inches, it doesn't go all the way, and I know it don't go all the way to the top, got the little stops on the side. But now, where you, okay, that's showing 24 by.
Clear, and when it says clear minimum, somebody may have a 24-inch sash and think that's good, but it's going to stop. It won't go all the way up. And that's where they get confused about it. It shows a casement opening on the left. You're only 20 inches wide. So it's a combination of width and height.
That's right. You finished. I just, I'm laughing because I get different things in different places, you know. And, one inspector said, well, you got two egress windows in the house. He didn't point out the location. And he made the woman go back and, like she done bought the windows. And see, that should have been told up front. But matter of fact, she got this company to do it. You know, they advertise on TV all the time, and they went there and installed windows all the way around the house and didn't say nothing about no egress.
Is this bedrooms only?
In bedrooms only, yes, sir.
But they wouldn't.
Because you've got doors that exit out of other areas.
Yeah.
So that counts as your egress. When you're in a bedroom, you have a door shut. So they consider you have to open up the door, go down the hall to get to it. And halls aren't guaranteed exits. So they want a guaranteed exit out of the bedroom.
Right.
Or back to the tiny houses. What was those questions you wanted answered?
Oh, on the tiny house,
Yes.
are we going to allow tiny homes in the county? And are they going to be the primary or the secondary on properties? I have 5 people that have contacted me about putting tiny homes in.
But how do we currently, in an ag or in an R2, how do we stop? I mean, we can't stop it right now.
It doesn't say they can be, but it doesn't say they can't be. So when there's an ambiguity, I refer back to what the only thing I know that is, and that's a 900 square foot. That's what I've been doing.
So that's in mobile homes and everything?
Yeah, well, mobile homes, okay, mobile homes have their own rules. They're governed by the state, not by the county or cities. So they have their own rules. A park model is not going to be governed by the state. It's going to be governed by counties and cities. That's why it runs. They're saying a park model will be allowed. They're built different. So mobile home, manufactured homes are governed by the state. They have to meet state specifications before they're allowed to leave the factory. And we cannot override what the state declares is what is.
And that's manufactured, mobile home manufactured in prefab homes, are those the same?
Correct. Prefab home, well, prefab home is going to come and be set on a foundation. That's going to have to fall under, we're going to inspect it when it's being set and making sure everything's up. So they won't have somebody from the state in there inspecting it. When it's set on site, it'll get inspected.
Okay, now for my personal opinion about that, when the townhouse, some people can't afford but 1 bedroom. And I mean, that's all they want. And I wouldn't dare deny a person if that's all they want. You know, I wouldn't put no limit on 900 square feet. I mean, that just creates a problem with me. But now what about the containers?
Okay.
You know, and I know we're talking about is that going to be considered part of the tiny house?
Yes, they want containers. And the reason I'm saying 320 square foot is because the containers 8 foot wide, 40 foot long.
Yeah.
You have the size of the minimum square footage. Mm-hmm. Now, it does declare in there, in the state thing, that all these may or may not have a permanent metal chassis, must be affixed to a permanent foundation. So the Yoder shed doesn't qualify because it's not affixed to a permanent foundation. It doesn't meet code in many other ways as well. So it has to have a permanent foundation that's being set on.
What is it, like concrete?
Concrete with a footer foundation.
I can't put a Yoder shed on a concrete with a footer foundation?
It won't meet codes in other ways, but you could, but it won't meet codes in other ways. They don't have the proper vapor barrier wrap around them. They don't have proper ventilation. And sometimes they come wired. And
but these tiny homes, you won't know if they will or not.
They're not going to be pre-finished. They're constructed on site.
What is?
The tiny home being constructed on site.
That park model.
The park model is being built to manufactured standards. But if it's mounted to a chassis, and the chassis will be then set and will be permanently affixed with tie down similar to a manufactured home.
Don't we have one tiny house on 99?
It's bigger than it met the 900. It's 906 square feet.
Oh, okay.
So it's bigger than a tiny house, just barely. But they consider 400 square foot a tiny house. Our code says 900 square feet.
So park models do have they're built to a state standard.
Yes.
Park models.
Yes, they come with a state stamp on them. A pre-manufactured home, to understand the difference, not a mobile home. There's ones that they'll send out houses that are going to be taken off of the chassis and set onto a foundation. Those are pre-manufactured houses. Those you have to inspect.
I personally speaking, I think the 300, what you said, 300 or something.
20.
Yeah, that'll almost cover everybody. You know, with that tiny house stuff. And that 900 that's a regular house. I mean, you know, you right at ain't but a few more hundred square feet from having a regular house. But yeah, I don't know how the rest of the board feel, but I think that's the route we ought to take on that.
That's what he's saying. That the only place the 900's mentioned is in R1. It's not mentioned anywhere else, but he refers back to R1 when it's not mentioned. So it's not mentioned in R2
Or ag.
or ag, but he reverts back to the R1
because of the ambiguity, because I don't have any clear, and that's part of what helped me. What can I allow?
So y'all are willing to allow tiny houses in ag, R1, R2? Okay.
There's neighborhoods you don't want,
Well, that's why we need to.
And we sit here thinking, well, yeah, it'd be a good fit over here in this particular area, but, I mean, if there was somebody that had money, bought a lot up at Lewis Mill, but they's my age and we don't want no room, just enough for me and my wife and my dog. I don't think those folks up there won't be sticking to tiny homes.
No, I wouldn't even. That.
And so when you say tiny home, we can't determine where somebody's gonna try to stick. That's the juggling act right there.
Well,
I can see neighborhoods where say, oh yeah, and I can see where they trying to go with this to provide housing.
Can I put 5 on an acre and rent them out?
Well,
no.
Why?
What about yourself, Tank? Well, but but then let me ask you this. Okay, now why don't we spell out the areas and like you're saying R1, R2, whatever? Yeah, because I would, because they're going to drive down the property value, the tax value, and all that kind of stuff when you do all that. So when we, well, let me ask something else. What if the person already got an acre of land, and that's all he can afford to put is a tiny house there, and I got, my house, and somebody else got another house. So how do we keep them from when they've been had that land there, how do we stop?
They'd have to get a variance to change the. And if you allowed it in a certain, they would have to get a variance to put a house there that was beneath whatever the minimum standard is. Again, I think there's a place for this, but aren't we working on the zoning now to change the zones and
Yes.
I see this included in one of those buckets of.
Yeah, this is just, I don't expect a decision to be made today, just start the conversation. And do you want it to, and also remember, in each zone, there's a list of what's called permitted uses and a list of conditional uses. The permitted uses means if it's on the list of permitted uses, you can do it. You ain't gotta ask for no exceptions or no variance or nothing. Do you want tiny houses to be a permitted use or a conditional use in whatever zone? If it's a conditional use, then they gotta apply for a conditional use for a tiny house in this zone. It'd be advertised. That way the neighbors would have a chance to come voice their opinion. Of course, you stir it, you potentially open up a can of worms. Everybody doing it that way.
But you police it.
And really, we need a recommendation from the planning commission on this.
Okay.
I would think.
Getting complicated.
So, all right, let's table.
I can table that. That's fine.
Table tiny houses, and you go back to the planning commission on that. Is that okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
We really need to get the planning commission input on this.
That's fine.
All right. Then, in regard to, hold on 1 second here. The recommendations from the planning commission.
Yes. They had several recommendations. They were recommending changing all the wild ag, redefining R2 to remove multifamily from the definition, create a new zone called R3, and the R3 would be multifamily, duplexes, triplexes, and we actually have a gentleman who's willing to allow his property, which is currently combination ag and commercial, just outside Pinehurst. His name is Jeremy Wilson. He has 170 some acres. He's willing to allow that to become R3 because if we take out multifamily out of the R2, we're depriving the county of having the ability to do multifamily if we don't have somewhere to put it. So,
Why does he want it R3?
he's willing to allow it to become R3 because in the future he could sell it for more. It'd be a financial benefit for him. And it gets him he is right outside the city, and he's where you could tie into the sewage system that could handle multiple family very easily. And then it could be incorporated into the city eventually if they wanted to. They could annex it into the city because they'd have city sewage and city water there available to them. So he's willing to have his property rezoned so long as it doesn't change what it is now. It's farmland right now. He doesn't want to change it until it's able to be sold.
What is his now?
Pardon me?
What's his now?
It's a combination of ag and commercial. And that's part of the problem that we have. We have multi-zoning on property. That was an issue that we were trying to address. The parcel is 7122, if you want to look that up.
I thought we were talking about that one time about trying to straighten all the R's and M's and S's out, you know.
And it's
What's the parcel number?
7122.
Yeah, it's a benefit to him, but by us just doing it, that gives him carte blanche to build whatever he wants there, right?
R3. It could only be multifamily once it gets changed to R3. So he can't build just anything. It'd have to be townhomes. And once he starts that, because right now he's in the Kula.
You say townhomes, I hadn't seen a townhome around here forever. I think of like apartment complexes.
That's what multifamily can be. It can be townhomes, which are multiple units built together, all under one roof. They're individual and people own them. That's the difference in a townhome and an apartment. Or you could have the multifamily, which could be apartments. It could be individual duplexes spread out, including, this is something they're actually doing where we had the conference. They have a tiny home community. There was about 50 of them there, that they were all in a fenced area, and they were all tiny homes, and they were connected up to the sewage, and they actually were governing it pretty well, and it actually looked very nice. It was surprising.
And where was this?
This was in St. Simon's Island,
Not Dooley County.
not Dooley County.
Well, I can see that in areas of Florida too, you know, where people, instead of moving away from travel pool type RVs.
You know, all them houses on the government program, I'm just thinking about stuff now. You know, we built one or two of them. Them were some small houses. I wonder how in the world that would fit. You know, I was going through Sherry Kirkland. And, you know, I was saying, I said, now, you know, I don't know what we would have been able to do. I just had that thought. Okay, they were small. They were less than 900 square feet. I just thought about that. But that multi, I don't know. It's like this is a money making thing.
Continue on.
Yeah, I just thought about that.
So that was the zoning changes that we're looking at doing. The other part was the recommendations on the ordinance changes. We had the crypto data mining ordinance. The purpose of the crypto data mining ordinance is, one, we've got one coming in, and we wanted to regulate how it's used. Statesboro had one go in their industrial park, and they had said it's not going to be loud. It won't be over 50, 60 decibels. And it wasn't over 50, 60 decibels, but it never stopped. And it's magnified by the size of it. Their place down there is 16 acres. One we have is 65, much bigger. They said they wish they would have put something in it to surround it with a sound barrier wall to prevent the sound from annoying the neighbors. And so we did that in it. We included a sound barrier wall so that it would go up to the highest point so that in essence, like an interstate, it greatly reduces it to any of the neighbors nearby, so they don't have that sound barrier uh, impacting on them. That was the biggest thing. The other thing is regulations of making sure that they're going to, if they leave, that's something they want to make sure that if the place is cleaned out appropriately so that it's reusable to sell easily afterwards. And that's on the data mining. The outdoor recreational.
On the outdoor, on the crypto,
Yes.
by future adoption of that, are they already grandfathered in?
No, they haven't. They have not issued required a permit yet.
So as soon as they hit their permit, they're,
Then they're in.
That initial phase will be not subject to the ordinance.
so we don't know when that's coming.
And just let me say, I'm gonna take my county administrator hat off. I'm here as private citizen Stephen Sanders. I'm concerned about that, being a neighbor to the property. I'm concerned about the noise.
It should be, yeah.
So we need, I mean, I didn't know how pressing this was, but you're saying this is very pressing to,
Yeah, they have purchased the property.
Yeah, I mean. And I don't know, it's the initial phase, and that site, part of it's inside the city, part of it's outside the city. Is the initial phase gonna be in the part that's inside the city, which we got no control over? Or is it gonna be outside the city? And I understood the city started a process of getting this ordinance, but I think it got put on hold to the best of my knowledge.
They've actually requested ours, what we did on our modifications, and they want to make it the same. So they are doing that.
how did your people feel about it? 'Cause there's a whole neighborhood.
There's a whole neighborhood a whole lot closer than I am.
Right behind you. So are trees not enough buffer?
No. And we didn't want to put metal walls because from our study, the metal walls, depending on the sound, can actually reverberate the sound.
So what kind of walls are you talking?
It's going to be a concrete masonry wall with some type of decorative exterior so it doesn't look like just a big blank.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Concrete masonry concrete wall with some type of textured exterior that's attractive. And that can be open to discussion. We don't want-
Valdosta, they got, I've noticed on Valdosta when I went to Jacksonville, it's got that decorative texture to it.
Yeah.
Concrete wall. Yeah, well, they're making on 475, they tried to use the metal
Yes.
years ago.
So the intent is to, and they said the wall has to be as tall as the minimum unit that goes, because some are multiple stories. They'll do them 2 and 3 stories tall. They may have to build a big wall because sound, from what we've understood, if there's a wall here, sound will hit it and it causes it to go up at an angle. It won't go down, so it won't be a bother to anything below the wall at all. The sound doesn't go down; it carries in a straight path up. So that's why they want to bring it up as tall as whatever they're building in there. They have 2-story in Statesboro. They're 2 stories tall.
And they don't have the wall over there.
No, they didn't put the wall in. And they don't have any residents nearby. They have businesses. The businesses are annoyed to death. One of them's a battery factory. And they said the noise just drives them crazy in the battery factory right next door. Just continual. And they didn't anticipate that when they first put it in. But they got it now.
Okay, go to the outdoor recreational
The
ordinance.
outdoor recreational, this one was concerned to be it's going to be very controversial because of the regulations going to put on it. They're decided to go above the floodplain requirements for a recreational vehicle. Recreational vehicle floodplain, it says 180 days or must be licensed so that it can be pulled out. So it's one or the other in the floodplain. They have decided 180 days it's got to move. They wanted to move out of that location and go down to another one. The only thing I can relate it to is I was in Seattle, Washington. I worked out in Seattle for a while. I moved out there in an RV. Theirs was even shorter. When I had a Class A RV, a 45 foot. When I went to pull it in, they said, okay, you can only be here 90 days. I go, well, I'm looking for a house. What if I can't find a house in 90 days? He goes, ain't my problem. You're leaving in 90 days. And I said, well, can't you make some exception in case, I got it for closing? And he goes, I'm not going to put up with the fine. You're not worth that much to me. Got it. I'll be gone so I found out all the RV parks, 90 days, they all shift. And then they shift again. And what it does, it takes all those that are derelict and that aren't able to move,
And weed them out.
they go out. Right. So it keeps you at a higher level of people in the RV park. So that's what they decided. They said 180 days across the board throughout the county, they have to be relocated.
This is just for designated parks.
No, this is everywhere, the entire county, including hunting camps.
But what about one at my house?
Well, your individual personal one is not under the regulation of it.
These are only out of county?
Say that again?
These are only ones that are from out of county?
No, this is ones that are, for example, they said you can have up to 3 RVs at your home. So I don't know why they pulled that out, but that's what they said. Because some people, and I said, 3
Hey, I need
RVs? He goes, yeah.
I need 3, one north, one south.
That was what they determined. So it needed some work, but I just thought, okay, we'll bring it.
So all this is this isn't just for a park. This is for, so what are we currently, if I own an acre lot, I can go park my RV on it and stay
No.
there?
No, because the ordinance says you have to have a primary residence first. Then you can park an RV.
Can I store it on a lot?
No, you have to have a primary residence first, is what the ordinance says.
Okay.
They're coming down from the state.
That's our ordinance. Yes.
That's what our ordinance says, or that's your interpretation of what our ordinance says?
It said that on the first part, it said there must be a primary residence before any auxiliary buildings, except for ag can have auxiliary buildings that deal with the farm equipment. In essence, I'm adding a couple words, but it's in the first part of the ordinance.
So you're saying an RV is an auxiliary building?
Yes, when I spoke to Bert, asking him if it's not tagged, it's considered an auxiliary building. If it's properly tagged, it's a vehicle that can go on the streets.
Okay, so if it's properly tagged, I can park it on my lot. Because it's not an auxiliary building anymore.
Correct. I will go with that, yes. Most of them aren't. But
wait a second. Back up. The lady we denied in here, hers was properly tagged. She was asking for a zoning change. Hers was properly tagged, insured. She pulled it back and forth from Leesburg.
we have been enforcing no RVs unless there's a residence there. You can't store a RV on property. They were saying it had to be. So we just need, that's one of the things we need clarity on, because we have decided we're going to enforce that you can't have an RV without a house in a residential area.
People with nice RVs store them on the house, store them where they have their home. You see that a lot. You know, they even get the buildings that are high enough for them to park them under. So I get that. But I really do see you got to control that sticking it in the neighborhood there.
But now I'm backing up to what he's saying, that we were treating it as an auxiliary building. It's got a tag. We can't treat it as an auxiliary building. They can stick it on a lot by the river. Right?
According to what we've been doing present, I'm only going off what we've done in the past. No. Off with what we've done in the past, because there's not a house there.
But you
No
said the
intentions of
lawyer-
a house.
You said the lawyer said if it's properly tagged, we can't call it an auxiliary building and use that ordinance to stop it.
I'm just going off what we've done in the past. I'm not making a decision.
Okay, move on, Pat. What else is in the outdoor recreation ordinance?
Pardon me?
What else is inside recreational? Something about a decal?
Has to have a decal. Everybody has to purchase a permit to have their RV in the county. It's a $25 and it's good for 180 days. And that'll be purchased through the zoning department.
How do we handle that? How do we keep up with that?
That can be done easily with the software that I have, the same way it does with building permits.
Who's gonna govern?
Then to govern it, they had recommended that a code enforcement officer be hired for the county because we don't have a code enforcement officer presently for the other issues that we have with zoning. Right now, all of it falls on the, it goes before the zoning commission and it's brought before y'all. And it's just it's going to add a whole lot, especially with all those down at the river that are just being lived in year round that aren't licensed. All of those are going to become an issue if we don't have a code enforcement officer to address them, because the sheriff isn't going to address it because he feels that that's a zoning issue. It's not a law that he has to enforce. My understanding.
Is that considered an RV park down there?
No, it's R2.
So how would this wouldn't apply?
It was grandfathered in.
But this wouldn't apply to any of that down there?
Does what apply?
This ordinance?
Yes, because it will be coming in, and that we have to. My understanding is we're going to have to enforce what they are saying, because, and this is what I understand from Bert. In 1994, there was nothing there, and the ordinance was put in place. They came in after it. The ordinance has the authority to be enforced.
Okay, what else on the recreation ordinance?
I think that they are just about, if you make an RV park, how far apart, should have a septic hookup, water hookup that's meets certain state standards and such. That's basically the extent of it.
Okay. And then there's an updated list of a very long list of definitions, which I think is a good thing, because I think our current zoning ordinance has very few definitions. So we won't go through the unless any of y'all have a question about any of the definitions. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. What? Just defining things.
The next one on the large scale animal production and feedlots. This is to address potential of helping the chicken coops and stuff be built in the county, because there's such, you got to have 350 acres to put one building up right now. So it's to help that a little bit, and it also protects cities and communities around, because it gives it a 1 mile buffer. You can't put anything within that 1 mile buffer. And it addresses the sizes, multiple sizes, that different size farms. Some people can have a small farm with just one or two, all the way up to the huge commercial farms. Each of them will have to come before the zoning and get conditional uses for everything that they do, and then it'll go before the commission. So it's a complete rewrite on what it is with that.
All right, that was just sort of hitting the high spots.
Yes, sir.
I would suggest the next step in this is for the county commissioners and the planning commission to have a work session where we can all sit around and talk about this in more detail.
What if?
Yeah, to get their feedback or what their thoughts of how they came to these recommendations. So saying that, when would y'all like to try to schedule a work session with the planning commission?
What days do they meet? Just whenever
They usually meet the second Monday. Their next meeting is July the 14th, I believe.
We have a variance and a rezoning to consider then. I don't think either of them will take very long. It'll probably take 15, 20 minutes.
we
We meet at 5:30, so by 6 o'clock.
Well, I think it potentially be inconvenient for them to come to our meetings during the day, since
Okay. So we need to go to that meeting.
they meet at 5:30. We could scan, you could welcome to be there at 5:30, but say 6 o'clock.
I think 6, they'll be done with the part that they got to do.
I'm just trying to get a conversation going here. Does that sound like a plan for y'all?
Yeah.
Work session with the plan. with the planning commission.
I hear all that stuff, but we need to consider the citizen of the county too.
Right, and that's why we need to have a
Start a discussion.
July the 14th at 6 p.m.
So all these rules don't apply to everybody.
Well, I think we need to look at I get our recreational thing, but I mean, don't we need to look at the actual ordinance he's using to either stop or allow an RV in a particular place? Because that sounds like that's very, very vague. Based
Well, our
on,
current ordinance is very, very
well,
vague.
then the attorney gives his, I mean, he's saying if it's tagged, there's nothing we can do about it.
I think we need to have the attorney
But
present
we're
at
not
the work
following
session.
what he said. So, I'd like to see whatever that is, ordinance. that We talked through that in the work session.
I understand you can't even have one in Chris County unless
I don't know.
it's your personal.
Macon County does have the recreational outdoor ordinance, and they do regulate. They have to get a $25 parking thing. They're 180 days. They can leave it, but they'll have to get another $25 permit for the next 180 days. And they are operating and doing that at present. That's why I went to theirs to look at it, and we took theirs in comparison.
What does Chris County do?
You can't have one.
Period.
Nowhere.
You can't have hunting camps, nothing. If they find it, they begin to move you out if they find it.
What's their ordinance to do that?
Pardon me?
What is their ordinance to do that?
Oh, they got a monster ordinance. It's about as big as this book. So I don't know exactly which one, but I could get it
I'm
for
just
you.
curious, just what are they using to, I'm not saying we're that extreme, but what are they? Like on the hunting club definition, like I like a definition. A definition tells me what it is, but in the hunting club definition on page 19, it says an area of ag property leased, rented, or owned that is used for hunting. Hunting is defined by Georgia DNR. Then it goes into no permanent occupancy of defined RV is allowed. All RVs present on the ag location must have property. That's no longer a definition. That starts adding rules.
And that's part of what the ordinance, are you talking about the definition is doing that?
What's the definition you're looking at?
Hunting club currently, but automotive paint and body shop was one that is another.
That's in our current?
Well, that one right there, like automotive paint and body shop, number 3, it says that the storage of junk, wrecked vehicles, dismantled parts, or supplies not to be visible beyond the premises. That's a rule. That's not a definition. That's trying to, through a definition, we're trying to say that something can't be there. And that's what scares me with as many definitions as we were thrown going in and figuring out. Like I said, the hunting club, I know we've had problems with hunting club, but we need a hunting club ordinance. We're trying to enforce a hunting club through its definition. I mean, it says the use of the property cannot exceed 180 consecutive days. Again, that's not a definition. That's us saying that, that's us imposing a rule through a definition. I'm not disagreeing with the rules in it, but that's not the definition of a hunting club. Am I making sense?
I understand what you're saying. I didn't impose myself on any of the definitions. This was a separate group led by John Averill, and they came up with the definition themselves. So I can't, this is where a work session will get you that answer that I can't answer.
All right, so we'll just tentatively plan to meet with the planning commission at their July 14th.
Okay, and could I do one more on the floodplain?
Yeah.
The floodplain, I wanted to bring to y'all's attention and request and some, is the, at present, the floodplain department does not have a budget. There's many things that are requiring me to do that I don't have money to do. As far as notification, Kenny had suggested we ought to have a sign in the floodplain zone. That would help everybody that does something in the area know that they got to get a permit to do it before they do. Because if they modify the dirt in any way, they have to have a floodplain permit to modify the dirt in any way, shape, or form, so that there's a record of it. They don't know that now. They just go out there, start dumping dirt, start moving it around. It's creating issues. Not that they can't do it. They just want a notice of it. So to notify all the residents in a floodplain area with mailing a letter and let them know that they're in a floodplain. Some people might not know it. To verify, to get notification. For enforcement of the floodplain, to make sure somebody's there that's taking care of it, and that would go back to the code enforcement officer to help with that. And proper training. This is my first into it, and I make mistakes, but ignorance shouldn't be one of the reasons you're making mistakes. And I need to know what I'm saying. There's many things I've come into, I've run it, I just don't know, and I'm having to put people on hold. I'm making phone calls to DNR. Teach me what I need to know to tell this person the answer. So I'm requesting that. So the intent is hoping that the RV will bring in some revenue to help offset some of this cost as well. When I was talking to the planning and zoning board. So I was wondering if a budget for $12,000 a year would be acceptable to help fund what needs to happen with that. Because at present, I do not have a budget to do anything that I need to do.
Well, let's put that on hold till we have our budget work session.
Right. So I just wanted to bring that to y'all's attention.
Okay.
And take forward. And finally, this is the new code that starts as of January 1 for Dooley County, according to the state. This is the 2024 IRC is coming into effect. So this is the new code. There's lots of changes that are coming up. I'm trying to make the contractors aware of the changes as best I can. So
Building codes.
building codes.
Code ordinances.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to have a real brief work session on the budget. And I want to bring Misty in here. I've been working with her and we've been working on the budget right quick. This shouldn't take all that long.
Okay.
Leave this door open so the phone rings or the door beeps. All right, let me hand out one of these to everybody. We have gone through and got a first draft of the budget, proposed budget for next year, I'm sorry. And that first page there, all right, there's that first box there is the general fund. That first column of numbers is the current year budget, which was a balanced budget of $15,736,000. That's the amount we budgeted for revenues. That's the amount we budgeted for expenditures. Go to that second column. This is what our proposed revenues right now look at total $15,937,000. The proposed expenditures in the general fund total $16,286,000. So we got an excess expenditures of $348,000 at this point. This is just the first draft. This ain't by no means the final draft. And then the SPLOST fund, current year budget's $2,733,251. That's what we budget revenues. That's what we budget for expenditures. And we've got right now, we're proposing a balanced budget of the SPLOST fund. So that's where we're at right now, just the big picture. Then starting on the next page, pages 2, 3, 4, and 5 are the actual proposed revenues for the general fund. And I just, the ones that are highlighted, I forget some of them, but are that $360,000, for example. That's on line 9. That's DOT public transit. That's the money we're getting from DOT. In the current year, in that first column of numbers, the current budget was $300,000. We put $360,000 because that's what the proposed contract for next year is. But that's just a wash. That's not really revenue for us because we're gonna we got an expenditure line item of $360,000. So it's more important that our revenues and our expenditures be the same amount. We want it to be fairly as accurate as possible. So that's why we increased that to 360. The next highlighted item is on row 11. That's for DOT road projects. That's the LMIG money. We're assuming we don't know what next year's LMIG amount is. We won't know that until after July 1. We'll know it shortly after July 1. So currently this year was $733,000. So I just put $750,000 there. Just put something down. And you may say, well, why don't we budget the LRA, the supplemental LMIG? Well, right now there's no guarantee there's going to be a supplemental LMIG. That's just always been after the fact. So we're not counting on that in next year's budget at this point. Then you turn over to page 3, line 22, revenue for solid waste franchise fees. I don't know what that's going to be. The first quarter we got from Waste Management was $65,000. So we just grabbed $240,000. It could be more, it could be less. My crystal ball ain't working. Garbage collection fees should, in theory, be zero. We should be done collecting all the garbage fees we're going to collect by October.
In this year's, didn't we have the balance? Didn't we have that included in this year's budget of the arrears and all that she's been working to collect?
Yeah, I think that's $615,000 what we budgeted. I think that actually, we may have included our estimate of franchise fees in that amount. I don't remember, but I think we did.
You know the money she's collecting now?
Yes.
The past dues.
Yes. That's in that 615 plus. I think that also includes what we had projected to get for franchise fees in the current fiscal year.
We use that to balance it.
Yes. So if you look at that line 23, the garbage collection fees, we budgeted 615 year to date of 407. But I think that's misleading because we really need to add the 407 and the $65,000 franchise fees. Going forward next year, I think we need to have a separate revenue line item for the franchise fee so we can track it. And then the next biggest line item, yellow highlighted, is row 34, revenue for the probate court. And what we did on that, we just took our year-to-date actual of $1,660,000. That represented 8 months. We divided that by 8 to get how much that average per month, and then multiply that times 12 to come up with an annual figure based on the last 8 months. That came out to be $2,745,000. I have not talked to Rooney or the sheriff to see if that's feasible, but that's how I come up with that figure, or how we came up with that figure. And then probate court 2, we did the same thing, took the year to date, got a monthly average and just multiplied times 12. And probate 3, which is the technology fee, did the same thing on that.
Can you go back up to that one you did that from? Again, how much you say
Which one we're talking about?
the first one, probate?
Oh, line 34. How we came up with that $2,745,000.
Okay.
In the year-to-date column, as of the end of May, we had collected $1,660,000.
Right.
That was 8 months. So we took that figure and just divided it by 8 to get an average per month, and then took that average and just multiplied times 12 months in next fiscal year.
That's the adjustment we need to make on it.
Well, that's what we're saying. But we need to, when we go through the budget, let's talk to Rooney and the chair to see if they think we need to do something different.
If that number's only at 66.19%.
Not bad. What?
If that 1.66 million is 66% of the 2.5 we budgeted, how is that going? He's right on point.
Well, we missing this month. That figure's not in there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, hold on. All right, all right. She reminded me here. All right, let's go back. So if I'm saying the year to date, we're showing 1,660,081, but that's not 8 months because we didn't. It's only 7 months.
Okay.
I'm with. See, that was a test and you passed. So that averaged $237,000 a month for those 7 months.
Okay.
Then you multiply that times 12. Well, that don't come out. That's $100,000 more. Anyway.
Okay.
So that's why. And the reason we didn't get one, the reason one didn't get posted in the month of May, the check got covered up on my desk.
Well, we love to find money like that.
As long as it got covered.
So there's going to be 2 checks reflected in June's. So we'll be back on track.
Big league.
Big league then. And it was just a probate check that got covered up. Nothing else got covered up, but that was pretty big. Okay. All right, so then let's go to page 4. I went the wrong way. Hold on. Page 4. We'll go to page 5. Yes. And didn't really anything. So that gets you to the total of revenues, but as far as property tax revenues, I just plugged in the figures from this year so far. I haven't made any changes to that. Hopefully after today, Derek will have me some preliminary digest figures that we can start looking at. The tax assessors were meeting today to review the preliminary digest. So there hopefully would be some wiggle room there. All right, page 6 represents revenues for grants, the grant fund, but we don't budget anything for grants. We don't budget revenues and we don't budget expenditures. So then page 7 is the SPLOST fund. And the current year was a little bit confusing because we had 2 SPLOST in effect. The old SPLOST, we got money for it through January. Then starting in February, we got money from the new SPLOST. But in next year, it's just going to be the new SPLOST. And what we did there, we took those 2 year-to-date amounts, and that did represent 8 months of that to come up with a per month average, and extracting that out, that come out to be $1,580,000, which is just a slight increase of what we budgeted this year because you'd have to add the 1,024, so that would be 1,533,000, 40-something thousand dollars.
47,000.
Yeah. And then on T-Splosh, in the current year, we budgeted 1.2 million. Year to date, we've got 813,000. We're right at 67%, and that's what we're at on the budget. So right now, the trend is no question. There's no increased trend. Don't look like in T-Splosh. We're gonna be right on budget. So we're not proposing any increase in the revenue for T-Splosh. Unless y'all's crystal ball says something different. Then starting on page 8, you get into the expenditures just at the department total level.
And the request increases come from what numbers?
Holy moly. I knew something wasn't right with this thing.
ABM?
No. Look at row 6 on page 8. The county commissioner's budget.
We did that last year.
For some reason or other, the total didn't get brought over here to next year's request, so we're gonna be out even more than what we initially were.
What's the ABM money?
All right, the ABM money, line 4.
We're working at excess off.
We were able to, in this year, in the current budget, we didn't budget the whole payment to come out of the general fund. We knew we were going to have some excess SPLOST money, and we planned to use that. So,
But didn't we budget this in SPLOST this time? We budgeted debt payments in our SPLOST.
okay, all right. Get my thoughts together here. Okay. I see where you're headed there. Hold on a second. Let me.
Well, the 367 sort of ruined that money.
Yes, I knew there had to be something missing, but I just kept overlooking it.
You remember you did that last year too?
I do remember
We
that.
balanced it.
I remember that.
And then you said we needed another 300,000. If y'all want to get paid.
Okay. So let's go to general SPLOST. Why did that happen again? But anyway.
You don't want yours now.
Huh?
I said, you don't want yours. So I didn't take yours when we don't get paid.
No, it wasn't us. It was the office. They wasn't going to get paid.
Okay.
I don't know. I made sure ours was in there.
Okay. The problem, there's not going to be enough money. I'm trying to think how. All right, when we started receiving the new SPLOST in February, yes, a portion of that, one of the county projects that got funded was we allotted so much to debt service, which could be used for ABM or any debt service. Can I see your financial report? Yes, sir. So we've had debt service. Yeah, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 months contribution into that checking account for debt service, and it's got a total in it right now of $16,000. It's getting a lower 5,000. That ain't right. Yeah,
One didn't get, May hadn't got, does that check on you?
that rolled over into, so we're getting a little over $5,000 a month SPOS money to go into the debt service checking account. So at most, there's going to be $70,000 in there to pay the ABM. There's not going to be enough money next year to make the ABM payment, what I'm saying. But that was a valid question. So where was I at?
Here's a sizable amount here that's gotta be adjusted. The expenses of garbage collection.
Garbage collection, all right, that's on row 20 on page 8.
Increasing it $2,200. But see, we don't have the commercial and residential. We budgeted $132 and $200, $332,000 to handle paying them.
Next year,
We won't have that.
we won't pay anything.
Well, we may pay a little bit. We got a dumpster out there.
We're going to be paying them. We got for dumpsters and all the offices have
We
a
ain't paying
can.
407.
No, it's not going to be nothing.
No, we finna recoup that county commission amount right now almost, that era.
Yeah, that we need to go back. Yeah, that can be reduced significantly. So let's highlight that. I agree.
Like on the fire department, you got that increasing 71,000, but they're only running at 50%. What's your methodology of?
Let's look at that.
Have they started turning in requests?
Yeah, all departments have turned in their requests.
Okay, I didn't know.
And what I want to do is this year, I'm going to do something there. I want Misty and I to sit down with each one individually before they come in here and talk to y'all to try to help work out some of these kinks and expedite the process for y'all. Okay, the fire department capped outlay went from 10,000 to 50,000 for some reason or another.
We're getting our SPOS request, we're getting our SPOS allocation mixed in there somewhere or another, because it runs about 50 a year.
So anyway, we'll check on that.
And then the two big ones, I'm assuming these aren't increasing requests, but Sheriff's Department, the jail, that's just cause they're running above budget.
Sheriff's Department and jail, basically, all right, if you remember in your financial report, we have two sections. We have a payroll section and then other expenditure section. Basically, the Sheriff's Department, their other expenditure section budget didn't change, but we underfunded their payroll for the current year.
No, we didn't. We did not.
We under budgeted their payroll.
We didn't, but that's a good story to blame us for.
All right.
It was supposed to decrease.
Well, it did.
I see that. I see 400,000, almost $500,000.
So the proposed budget.
Okay, hopefully y'all get going. I know we on page 9, but which
Jail.
what number?
All right.
26 and 35.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to keep trying to search that what y'all talking about.
Yeah, that's why I put line numbers out there to
Yeah, I
try to,
I really like
to
that.
try to help.
Uh-huh.
The jail on Road 26, current year budget's $2,184,000. The proposed is $2,344,000, $160,000 increase. And I keep in some of that. I remember our health insurance premium is going up 25%.
Yeah.
That's going to be a chunk there. And then for the sheriff's department on Road 35, current budget's $3,154,000, and the proposal is $3,444,000, an increase of $290,000. And I didn't go to the trouble today to print out the whole budget, because that's going to be a bunch of. And I wanted to hit this, so we've already identified some areas we need to tweak, and then the next time I'll give you the full budget, but that's going to be
That's a big.
200 pages probably.
Yeah. I'm saying that 209. What happened?
290, but I'm just.
I mean, yeah, I know we just asking questions, but this you can hold it till you get
A lot of it's going to be, well, a large increase is going to be due to the health insurance costs going up.
all that.
It's $250,000.
And then funding the existing physicians. I think what Commissioner Nixon is referring to is, I think there was some, when we were doing this a year ago, there was some talk of that the things were going to be put in place to reduce. There was going to be some retirements and then hired at lower levels that was going to save money.
Mhm.
But your it's all in salaries. Is your salaries regular? It's at 77.98%. And that's 11% over on $1.7 million line item. I mean, that's killing, and that's killer.
And then continue on page 10 is the grant fund expenditure. But again, we don't budget grants. So then you get to page 11, which is the SPLOST. And basically what we did there, the way we're, hold on a second, let me pull something up. Because I know y'all going to ask a question and I won't be able to answer it, but I will be over that. SPLOST. New SPLOST to 2025, 25, 30. Where's the list of projects? All right, just a refresher of how the SPLOST process works. Before we put it to the voters, we had to estimate what the revenues were going to be for that 6-year period. And we said, all right, for 2025, we projected 1.6 million, and then did some sort of factor of a slight increase each year. To get to a $10,400,000 total proposed estimated revenues for that 6-year period. So then we had to come up with projects to put on the ballot for the voters to approve, totaling $10,400,000. Well, early in the process, we agreed, the county and the city met together and agreed Dooley County would get 75% of the proceeds, the cities would get 25%. Then the cities had to agree how that 25% was going, or at least a majority of the cities had to agree. And that's how we came up with the percentage of that $10,400,000. That's the percentage breakdown. So then Byronville had to come up with a list of projects of 1.49% of that total $10 million So they came up with, they listed equipment purchases of 42,000 and infrastructure projects of 112. And then each city did the same thing. And we had no say in what projects the city listed. They had no say in what projects the county listed. We listed courthouse, administrative offices, renovations. We said $300,000. Debt service payments, $450,000. EMS capital expenditures, $300,000. Fire department capital expenditures, $550,000. Jail capital expenditures, $1 million. Library capital expenditures, $50,000. Rec department capital expenditures, $150,000. And road, streets, and bridges, $500,000. So that's that's the projects that the voters approved. Now, just because we said $300,000 for the courthouse, that project isn't guaranteed to get $300,000. It will get it if the tax brings in $10,400,000. If the tax brings in over $10,400,000, once it hits $10,400,000, then none of the excess money can go to these projects. All excess money goes to the county to be used for debt service. So
we experienced this past budget.
for the first time ever, we experienced that this past year, past SPLOST. I'm saying all that to say, all right, so how the state sends us SPLOST money each month. Then we have to send the cities their portion, and then we have a separate checking account for each one of these county projects. So then we got to determine, well, how much money is going to go in each one of these checking accounts. And what y'all agreed to do this year is, all right, whatever percentage of $300,000 is of that 10 million, that's the percentage we put in to that checking account each month. So saying that, how do we project next year's expenditures? We got to go back over here and what are we projecting as revenue from that SPLOST and using those same percentages. So that's how we came up to those totals on page 11 for SPLOST and T-SPLOST. Now that reminds y'all, we do not have any funding for the road department out of the general fund. It's either funded totally by SPLOST, T-SPLOST, or LMIG. I think
That's dangerous.
you can make an argument that ain't good. But anyway, that's just sort of where we're at. I apologize for the big error on the county commissioner's budget.
This day I was sitting there thinking, now I know the two projects that we're doing with West Road and River Road down there. Okay, now the money that we budget in for that,
those projects are getting funded from LMIG money.
okay,
And actually,
all right,
they're actually getting funded from the extra LMIG money, the LRA money, the local road assistance money that we're not guaranteed to get yet next year. Hopefully we'll get it, but there's no guarantee we're going to get it. Those projects don't require any local match. Regular LMIG money, we have to match. We have to fund 10% of those projects and use LMIG to fund 90% of them.
but if we budget that in and then we get the projects done for a cheaper rate,
We can use, that'll save some money that can be used on other projects. For Like I said, that got funded out of 2024 LMIG LRA. So we had to submit projects to the DOT before they give us the money. We submitted for 2024 LMIG LRA. We submitted the West Road, the River Road, gravel on dirt roads. It seemed like something else. So if we save money, we're going to save money on the West Road and the River Road project, so we can make more money available for gravel, or we can add a project to that.
But we can't use that for nothing now.
For transport road projects.
Towards our budget.
No. It's got to be used on road projects, unfortunately. All right. Hopefully, I'll have this budget, the correction. I read the question is, when do y'all want to start doing budget work sessions with the department heads? Do y'all want to try to do one next week? Next Thursday, I reckon is the question. I'll ask specific questions. That would be the 26th. Do y'all want to do one any day next week?
I can the first of the week.
I would not like to do it on the Monday. Tuesday the 24th, is that a possibility? All right, can you be here, Mixon?
I can be here.
Mr. Robinson, could you be
9
here?
o'clock?
9 o'clock on the 24th.
Yes, sir.
Mr. David,
What day is that?
that's a Tuesday, June the 24th. Could you do it?
Yeah.
Well, let's,
When the next time we'll meet on the regular meeting?
our next regular meeting will be July the 3rd,
Third, okay.
Thursday before the holiday on the 4th. Tomorrow's a county holiday, and then the next county holiday is July the 4th on a Friday.
And then you said the 14th, when we meet with the,
Planning Commission, their meeting starts at 5:30, but y'all don't necessarily have to be here till 6 o'clock. So they
we'll
got,
meet again on the 17th too.
yes,
It is that time of the year.
it's that time of year.
Meet a couple times, yeah.
And we may, if our regular agenda for the July 3rd meeting is light,
Or we can.
I may
stay longer.
meet a couple departments, squeeze a couple
That'd be
folks
good.
in on that one.
That'd be good.
Cause used to, we try to do it an all day, and that just wears,
That burns you out.
that burns you out. Okay.
Well, I'm being honest with you. Quicker I can get my hands on your updated
I
stuff,
know,
with me sitting right by myself,
I know.
I can get more done probably,
Well,
you know, cause
But that's why I didn't want to do the full thing
Yeah,
today, because I
right,
knew there was gonna be something that
Yeah.
that just, I've looked and looked, and it just,
but that's when stuff starts jumping out,
Escape.
when you can focus and start jumping out at you, and that's what we.
and I'll have that ready.
We gotta find some money.
But we're gonna meet next Tuesday, so I'll have that next Tuesday.
You said you're meeting with department heads before that?
We're gonna try to. If we can make that happen. May not meet with the ones that gonna be on next Tuesday, but we'll see. Cause tomorrow's a holiday,
Yeah, they get it right.
and somebody's gonna be on vacation Friday.
Who would schedule a vacation?
Don't you even go there.
So selfish.
Don't you dare go there.
This time the schedule it ain't.
Yeah,
You already killed a snake with a hope.
that's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Take a hoe all the way to Florida.
You wanna shoot a gun?
Take a hoe all the way to Florida.
Where you kill a snake at?
Beach?
In Florida?
Take the whole lot. Hey, listen, listen.
You ready to adjourn, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, I make a motion with adjourn.
I second.
Every motion second. All in favor, please stand up and left.